Good morning. It is beautiful to hear your voices on this morning. You had an extra hour of sleep, and wasn't that lovely? Yes, yes. So welcome to this space of hope, possibility, and love, and joy, justice, and freedom. I'm the Reverend Dr. Beth Johnson. My pronouns are she, they, and we are gathering in this morning for our second part of a service on deep listening. We're going to be listening to all the cries this morning. That image is from the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, and it is a reminder for us to listen deeply. So I invite you to take a breath with me and arrive to this time and this place with these people. As we gather ourselves from the various parts of our day, the various parts of our lives, and even the various parts of ourselves. I don't know how many of you have felt like your parts may be all over the place, especially for those that you know internal family systems. You may know what I mean, but it's also a time when we can be scattered, we can be worried, and we can also gather in and gather that place in our center and gather in community. So I'm going to invite you to just sing with me, Gathered Here. We're going to go ahead and sing that through 3 times. That there are many claims on our lives and our attention, many demands of the day, of the world. Many times we know that we hear a calling, and it's hard to pay attention with the noise of the world. Now, we don't ignore the world here. The world is in here, right? We're not here to escape from the world. We're here to ground ourselves in love and in community and in possibility so that we can embrace the world and hear the world. Because there is someone calling your name. There's voices, there's love, there's a call. So I'm going to invite you to rise in body or spirit, or you can stay seated. However it is easier for you to hear. Invite you to rise in body or in spirit. Sounds like freedom. Sounds like justice, doesn't it? Beloved ones, we gather with love at the center of our lives. Listening is a form of worship, but you don't have to kneel on the floor with folded hands or mouth perfect prayers. Just open the door of yourself to another. Become the space they step through to show you who they are. This is holiness. Two people seated at the pew of a park bench, at the altar of a kitchen table. Even if no one says a word for a while, receive the silence until it's like a new language. Only the two of you can speak. Welcome. It is good to be together.
Please join me in lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. And this is a participatory one, so please join me. We are Unitarian Universalists who put love at the center of our lives. We light this chalice today to remember some voices are big and some are small, and some make no sound at all. But we all have a voice to share, and that is our job, to listen and hear everyone.
Thank you, Pam. We put love at the center. That's the core of Unitarian Universalism, is love at the center of all of our values. And this morning, I have a story, a little story for the Time for All Ages. And if there are other kids who want to come up, I invite you. You're going to come up for the story, and then you're going to stay for the choir song, and then Pam will take you out to your classes. So who would like to come over and see me? Great, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Pam. All right. And for you too. Oh, thank you for coming up. Yeah. It's good to see you. Oh. So for the past few weeks, we've been talking about listening carefully to people. Now, we know some people can't hear or can't hear well, and when we communicate with them, we have to communicate in other ways, write to them, touch them. But when we're listening to people's voices, can you hear me? Can you hear me? You can hear me. You everybody hear me? No, not everybody can hear me. If I'm talking really low, then only you can hear me. But if there's somebody way in the back, if I talk like this, can you hear me? No. For you to hear me, for us to be heard, sometimes we need to make our voices really big and say, can you hear me? Can you hear me? So the people in this room, I hope most can hear me, right? Okay, now, even if I say, can you hear me? Do you think the people next door can hear? No. If we opened the windows and I leaned out, do you think they would hear me? Maybe, yeah. And then they would wonder what's going on at this church. And
Maybe they would come.
maybe they would come. If I yelled, can you hear me? That would do it. And so if there's people in another part of the city, do you think they can hear me? No. Do you think people in other countries can hear me? No, they can't. It's too far away. But there are times when there are people who are not right near us, and they're feeling sad, or they're feeling hurt or afraid, right? And we need to hear them. So how do you suppose you can hear people?
Notes.
Notes. Exactly. You take notes, you look at them. Is that right? You read a book, you learn things, right?
Yeah, or you could write them notes.
You could write them notes too. That's one way. That's one of the big ways. Another way is to pay attention. What we talk about in the service the past couple of weeks was that listening requires that we be quiet so we can hear, and that we think about what the person is saying or what they need. And then we offer our presence. We offer ourselves to them to really notice them. So as we think about what it means to truly listen and see and hear other people, we've got to take notes. And we've got to maybe learn things about people. Like, you know how it is if you've got new kids in your class and you don't know them, once you know their story, doesn't it make a difference when you know someone? Yeah. So this is about getting to know people and hearing their stories and hearing all the things that they may have to say. So thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for your contributions, Penny. You're going to stay, and after the song, Pam is going to help you go out to class. You can stay here, or you can go back to your seats because the choir is going to sing a song. Does that sound good? Thank you. Can you hear voices are welcome here. And you can get there any way, however way you want to get there, too. Aw, good job, Mom. This song, Can You Hear, that the choir just did. Thank you, choir, Jamie, Julia, Karen, and thank you for allowing me to join with you. It's a song that lives in my heart, and it's a song that lives in my body. It's a song that at once grounds me and calls me beyond myself. Jim Popoulos is the composer of this song. He composes mostly for children's choirs and youngsters choirs and young adults. He says, as a composer, I want to explore what makes us human, what makes us considerate, what makes us accepting of one another. Through work, I travel to many parts of the world and work with young people from all different backgrounds. The focus of my work is primarily to write music that captures the voices of youth, the thoughts of youth, the hopes of youth, their inner strength woven into the lyrics and rhythms. And this is only one of Jim's songs that have those themes. And it was heartening to me to learn that his work emerged from workshops that he's done all over the world, with different children in different backgrounds in different countries. And what he was struck by, he wrote, is their desire to break from tradition, to explore worlds of helping others to share their inner voices, to fuse rhythms and chants and body percussion together with lyrics and melodies that were not only fun to sing, but meant something to them. And that was the main focus of what they wanted, for the text to mean something to them, to offer something that they could relate to. He worked with people who were affluent and people in underprivileged communities. He said he tried to learn what the answer is to breaking from the propagation of any extreme, be it wealth or poverty, and find a way to bring us all to a common ground as human beings. Of course, education, music, kindness, encouragement, role models, community involvement are often at the forefront of finding these solutions, he says. Music, especially for young people, is a bridge to self-empowerment, self-esteem, cooperation, and commitment. And he believes in the power of music to inspire young people. I believe in the power of music to inspire us all. As I listened to the choir practice and practiced with them and saw the labor that goes into bringing us the music, the idea, the point of music, I think, is to change hearts, to touch hearts, to bring us to places and insights that we might not always have. And so it is that we consider listening to the world, to hearing all the voices, to embodying and practicing the kind of listening that our kids suggested, that we take notes, we be mindful, we pay attention, we learn. We've been talking about deep listening, as I said, is about being silent, so we can pay attention, reflecting on what we hear, and then being. Did you know that there is a World Listening Day? I learned it while I was searching for images for the slides. It's on July 18th, every year. It's organized by the World Listening Project. It celebrates the art of active listening to sounds of the environment, to raise awareness of the importance of listening to as a cultural practice, and it promotes sonic stewardship of the environment. Now that means is just preserving the sounds of the environment, the rivers, the trees, right? The animals, all that we can hear in the environment. It encourages individuals to engage with the soundscape around them. I can't wait for next year, July 18th. Or maybe we shouldn't wait for a year. Maybe we could do it more than once a year. There's going to be some forest bathing that's going to go on around here in the next week or so, and they'll be listening, won't there? Now, the project focuses on hearing the sounds of the environment, which is important. I can imagine a World Listening Day when we listen to the cries of the people in our world, listening to voices that aren't like our own, of people who we think are not our own, the voices that are far away in geography, culture, or identity. The deep listening that we get to do when we engage in silence and reflection and presence is to respond to life in creative and novel ways. If we're listening to our own inner wisdom or source, if we're listening to another person, or we're listening to the world in each instance, we bring those qualities to that interaction, to that deep listening. What does it mean to listen to those who are far away? Far away may be the person on the next block. It may be the person around the corner, as we said. It may be the person in another city. It may be the person in another state. It may be people who are in other countries. How do we listen to those who are so far away? It can be hard to listen, especially listening to the cries of the world, to the cries of children, to the cries of people who are suffering. In thinking about listening to the world, to those far, I'm reminded that it's difficult when we don't see or know. I check a website called Genocide Watch periodically. There are numerous genocides taking place around our world. Darfur, Sudan, Nigeria, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Syria, North Korea, Myanmar, the Rohingya in Bangladesh, the Uyghurs in China. That's a lot of genocides. And then there is the genocide taking place in Gaza right now. There are many different ways that we are called to hear but find it difficult. And Genocide Watch, there's also genocide warnings. So it calls us to pay attention. Beloveds, it is hard to take in all of it. And those are just the cries of genocide around the world. There are cries of millions in this country, hurting from poverty, malnutrition, oppression, alienation. I could go on. It's a lot, isn't it? Sometimes it's on the edge of our consciousness, right? And sometimes it's here. When it's here, something else happens. It is also hard for the human psyche to absorb the numbers. And it's understandable. It's difficult for our brains. Literally, our brains can't take it all in. We can see individuals and respond with compassion. When the human numbers go up, we become numb, which is understandable. Sometimes it's compassion fatigue, sometimes, and it's really just that our brain at some point shuts off. Brian Resnick wrote, it's called psychic numbing. It means as the number of victims in a tragedy increases, our empathy and our willingness to help reliably decreases, not because we're bad people, but our brains are wired that way. It happens even when the numbers change from 1 to 2. Much of what we know about psychic numbing, he writes, is from the University of Oregon psychologist Paul Slovic, whose work I had been familiar with, who for decades has studied the intersection of emotion and decision-making. He said, Slovic, here's the stark truth of it. There's no constant value for human life. The value of a single human life diminishes against the background of a larger tragedy. In his studies, Slovic saw that his colleagues were encouraged to donate to children in need. When the number of victims rose from 1 to 2, researchers recorded a decrease in empathy, as well as smaller donations. That's all it takes. The brain cannot imagine millions of people, but it's really good at thinking and caring about individuals. We care. We care about people. We care about individuals. It's just groups of individuals that become difficult. Resnick suggests, what if saying a group of people, we highlighted people in a group? We can understand individuals, so that's why stories of a sick child often overshadows massive crises. There was a sick child, an 11-month-old in the UK with a rare fatal disease, and he was brought to this country for treatment. Some Republicans in Congress wanted to make Gard a US resident so he could get experimental treatment. And many of those same people voted for healthcare legislation that would have taken healthcare away for millions of people in this country. One boy was an emergency. The millions, an abstraction. If we say people in a group, we could emphasize the individual enough to increase the perception of those people who have working, feeling, and thinking minds. It does help. Also, the research shows if people look like us. Resnick talks about overcoming the numbing. Again, it's simple. Emphasizing the group, the people in a group, the individuality, enough to increase the perception of folks. They also refer to the compelling and transforming photo of the 2-year-old Syrian boy, Alan Kurdi. His name was reported as Aslan, the boy in the red shirt who washed upon the shore, whose family were refugees trying to reach Europe from Turkey. Sparked international compassion and aid for refugees. His mother and his brother were also drowned. This explains in part why we relate so profoundly to the Israeli hostages, as we should. We've seen their pictures. We know their names. We hear their parents speak about them on television. We see their faces. It's also one of the reasons why it's difficult to grasp the level of death and devastation in Gaza and in so many places. These people have no names to us. They seem foreign to some of us, except for the people in our midst who are themselves Palestinian and have family and friends who are directly affected. Genocides are distant. You cannot see the children in this photo under the rubble. These are their faces. Can you see my eyes? Can you hear me cry? Calling in the distance, could it be the sound of my heart? Here I am before you reaching, could it be I'm slipping away? Suddenly I'm falling, trying to find a way off the ground. Will I see a future in me? as I see it slipping away. This is a question for us as people of faith at this pivotal time in our country and in our world. Now, I say this not to make people feel badly, but without giving a face, in addition to the numbers, and unless you are on Instagram or find your news in non-traditional sources, you will not have seen. We don't see Darfur and Sudan. We don't get those pictures at all. We care about the people in Ukraine. We're aiding them. But remember, we don't see their pictures and their flags like we used to. Humans, oh, we're so complex. We're so precious. We're so longing. And sometimes we can't hear. Sometimes we can't see. In the Poor People's Campaign, we quote the figure that there are 140 poor and low-wage workers in this country. It's a stunning statistic. Can you imagine 140 people, 40 million people? I'm going to ask you, okay. Can you imagine 140 million people? Can you imagine it? We have 141 people in this congregation since we just got a new member. Thanks, Matt. And then Aileen made us 140. And it's still helpful when we wear our name tags. In the Poor People's Campaign, when we hold events, we always have people from affected communities. Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, one of the co-chairs, sees to that. The poor, those devastated by devastating policies, what he calls policy violence, always get the mic. Faith leaders too, never electeds, always the poor. In March 9th, 1965, Unitarian Universalist minister James Reeb was in Selma to join the Selma to Montgomery marches, which were prompted, you may remember, by the murder of Jimmy Lee Jackson. Reeb was attacked coming out of the diner by white men with clubs. He died 2 days later. His death caused an outrage. Martin Luther King decried the cowardly act. On March 15th, President Lyndon Johnson invoked James Reeb's name and circumstances as he delivered the Voting Rights Act to Congress. It's not surprising, albeit still disturbing, that it took the murder of a white man to galvanize support for voting rights. It is not surprising, but no less distressing, that a central component of the Voting Rights Act was gutted 11 years ago by the Supreme Court in Shelby County versus Holder. Since Shelby County was decided, at least 29 states have passed 94 restrictive voting laws. While a few of these have been blocked by the courts or repealed, most are still in effect. And in at least one county continues to operate, at least one continues to operate in all of the 29 states. Not surprisingly, these laws disproportionately affect people of color. We see the effect right now in the political rhetoric in this country, threats of violence to poll workers, disenfranchisement. I never expected that, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but that's a sermon for another time, given the history in our country, to hear election officials talk about, yes, there will be threats and there may be violence, but we're ready for it. We're ready for it. So, can we hear the cries of those who are affected? My friend, the Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner, and I were chatting yesterday. She lives in New Jersey, serves a congregation there, but was in Pennsylvania. And as she was canvassing folks. I love that voice. It's their voice. We really need to hear y'all, right? It's their voice. It's for them. It's for them to be able to use their voice and have their voices heard. And women surreptitiously told them who they voted for. I thought it was just like a commercial, but it was true. In this country and around the world, immigrants are demonized. They're described as murderers, rapists, vermin. They're called vile, vilified. They're demonized. The ultimate other. I could go on. But you know this. It's a lot. I know it's a lot. God, I know it's a lot. Will we hear? Will we see? Listening to the world does ask that we see, that we risk seeing. We're silent in our listening, reflect on what we hear, what we learn, bring our presence and our lives to this world. For listening to this world at once opens us and humbles us and asks us to reflect and be present to all that it is saying to us. The natural and created world and the people and the beings not part of our immediate community call to us as well. In listening, we hear the diversity of voices, all of the cries. We see individuals in a group as kin, for surely they are. Surely they are. We look for new possibilities rising up out of devastation. And beloveds, I believe that this is the moment for us to do that, to be brave, to be bold, to risk, to be courageous, to say, what is it I am not seeing? And once I see, what is it for me to do? How will we respond? And we all respond in different ways. If what you can do, pray, pray. If what you can do is make a phone call, make a phone call. If what you can do is talk to a neighbor, talk to a neighbor. If what you can do is sing, by all means, sing. Sing songs of justice and liberation and freedom. Listen to hearts beating for justice. Listen to hearts longing for peace. Listen to hearts crying for compassion. We bring our presence to this beautiful, broken world because, beloveds, don't forget this. And this is the lesson from World Listening Day. Listen to the world around you. Listen to the wind in the trees. Listen to those babies. For the love of God, always listen to babies. Always. No matter what they're doing, no matter what they're saying or how loud they're saying it, we just listen to babies. Listen to music that soothes your soul or stirs you to action. Listen to birds. You could watch too. Like I'm watching squirrels who are really so pushy in my feeder. I think I've talked about my squirrels here a couple of weeks ago. Paying attention to the world and hearing the cries of the world does not mean that we can't move through life with compassion and hope and, yes, even joy. Joy is an act of resistance to all that would thwart life. Not happiness, which is dependent on external circumstances, but a joy. A joy knowing that when we hear that bird or we hear the waves, when we hear our beloved one next to us crying and snoring, we are alive in this moment and it is beautiful. And we are going to save and savor beauty. What's that quote? I wake up every morning with the desire to save and savor the world. It makes it hard to plan the day. I say, do both. When I wake up in the morning, when I go to bed at night, when I reach for the convenience and it's not there, and I think, oh my gosh, I'm out of paper towels. In my heart, I think of those under the rubble, or those who are in harm's way. That doesn't mean I do not enjoy paper towels. It simply means that I'm connected to them in a way as if I knew them, because I do. We all do. Find joy. Listen to the promptings of the Spirit and the voices of those near and far, responding to the divine cry, calling us to understanding, to love, to justice. We can allow our senses to be awakened. Would you like to wake up your senses? Why don't you sing together? Rise, embody your spirit, and let's do that. Breathe. Breathe. And if you'd like to take a deep breath and exhale, you can do that again. You can hear the breathing of the person next to you, can't you? You can lean into that person. This is a time in our service where we are going to listen to one another. I'm going to share our joys and sorrows with one another, and we're going to do that in a little bit different way today. It's going to require some listening, And it's going to involve some calling out. And you can do it softly, or you could do it loudly. And just know that it is being held in the container of this sacred space, made sacred by our presence, by our song, by our intention, and by the gathering of one another. This is sacred space. For each thing that's called out, I will drop a pebble in silence. So what is it that you would like heard today? What can we listen to? Family. Rain. Healing. Other opinions. Hope. Joy. Pardon? Heartbeat. Pause. Heartbeat. Laughter. Freedom. Democracy. Music. Tears. Choices. Gratitude.
Each other.
Each other. Birds. Thank you.
Silence.
Silence. Peace. Children. This church. History. May it be so, the future. For all that we've heard, for all that has been left unsaid, for all of the cries we hear and the ones we don't, will you hold with me a moment of silent reflection? Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Holy One moving in, through, and among us. We listen for your cry, for your call on our lives. We listen to each other, and in so doing, we are closer to being who we are called to be. As we move into another time, may we carry with us the sense of all that has been spoken, all of the aspirations, all of the joys, all of the worries, and know as we hold them together, and together, we shall overcome. And beloved, know this, you are always and everywhere held in love and mystery deeper than you can know. We have listened to voices from far. We have listened to the voices in our church. And now, Tony Metters is going to join us, and we're going to listen to our church. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to be up here with you and do the slides.
I'm Tony Metters. I'm your worship associate today. I'm an African-American male. My pronouns are he and him, and it's my pleasure to be here with you. For being here today. If you're visiting, I know I saw a lot of visitors today. I'm really pleased to see you. And please sign the visitor's log located in the living room. Susan will take care of you back there. As Reverend Beth mentioned, members and friends, try to wear that name tag so we can foster some communication and dialogue with one another. I'll talk if I don't know your name, but it helps. If you need a name tag, you can see the person in the living room, Susan. And stay after, and downstairs we're going to have coffee and snacks and conversation, and we're going to listen to one another. If you're visiting for coffee, try to grab a green mug. It helps us know who you are so we can approach you. So, everyone is welcome here in this house of peace. And may our worship and fellowship this morning touch your heart, mind, and spirit. Welcome to our celebration of community. Also want to thank the folks who are joining online. We're glad you're with us. There's a lot going on around the church, and you can read all about it in News and Notes. Every time I'm up here as a worship associate, I say I look forward to that every Friday, and I do. And I read it, and I absorb it. So if you are not getting News and Notes by email and you'd like to receive it, stop by the welcome desk again, and we'll make sure that you get on the list. Okay. We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from commitment and hard work. And we saw so much of that commitment last night. Ooh. That's not right. Whoa, that's not right, okay. So I'm going to skip that part. That'll be for a few weeks from now. So we're going to have an offering to sustain and grow the life of this mission of this congregation in Love and Hope. Please join me in these offertory words. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, the people around us, and with the world.
Well, we've been doing some listening. We've been doing some, I hope, imagining of what we could be in our world, how we could engage. We took an offering, but we're not buying our way into heaven. Julia Beckman, our choir director, said, we are not gonna buy our way into heaven. I kind of think that we might sing our way into heaven. We might sing our way where? Into that promised land. So are we gonna do that?
We're gonna do it. You may wonder why I chose this. Get up on the little stool here. Because 2 days before the election. So we're headed to the promised land.
believe it? That we are headed toward the promised land, because the promised land, I believe that it needs to be heaven here on earth, and that is possible. It is possible.
Give me a call Tuesday night around.
Yeah.
I'll let you,
Wednesday evening.
I'll let you know.
But here's what we know. Peter Crower said this in an email. Was it only yesterday? Let us hope for the best. And remember that no matter what, no matter who wins, the sun will rise in the morning and set in the evening. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of its truth, the warmth of this community, or the fire of our commitment unto as we carry in our hearts and we share with all the world. And so, beloveds, as our service ends, and we bring that out into the world, I think we still have to listen, right? You heard some stuff? Still maybe can listen? Do you think that somebody's still calling your name? Mm-hmm. Do you? Can I get an amen on that? Or? All right, thank you. Somebody's calling our name. Somebodies are calling our name. Freedom, justice, calling our name. We're going to sing again, but we've got a Cries verse for you, so you just pay attention to that. So I'm going to invite you to rise in body or spirit and sing with me. Could you feel the Spirit? That'd be the Holy Spirit of Unitarian Universalism. If you don't think that exists, just look around at each other and go in peace, makers of peace. Amen. And vote.